I rise to speak against Government Motion 28, the changes to the standing orders. And in listening to my colleagues, I've been reflecting a little bit about, like, why are we here? Like, we're here because people voted us in and we are the elected representatives of the people of Alberta, but like, why does this House exist? Why does the legislature exist? It exists to pass the laws of the land that serve the people of the land. And we are here as a government and as an opposition to have fulsome debate around those laws and around those changes. And it is that action of debate, Mr. Speaker, that is really critical to the job that we do. It is why there is an opposition, is because Albertans want there to be a fulsome discussion and conversation around the laws of the land and the changes to the land. And so I think that that's a really important aspect of this, that engaging in debate, while sometimes in this House is, I would argue, questionable in its level of respect, but most of the time, I think we do have fairly respectful debate on some things. But that debate has to be able to happen, Mr. Speaker. We need to allow time for that debate to happen. And these changes to the standing orders actually reduce that amount of time, which therefore reduces the credibility of this House to accurately and effectively represent all of the people in Alberta. And newsflash, Mr. Speaker, a lot of the people in Alberta did not vote for the government. That's why we have the largest opposition in Alberta history, because a substantial number of Albertans voted for a different political party. So those Albertans also deserve a voice in how decisions are made in this House. There are two particular changes to the standing orders that I find most problematic. First is this programming motion that allows time allocation for multiple bills at once. While this motion does allow for a new 1-hour programming motion debate, it does affect how we effectively and fulsomely debate each bill during each phase in the legislature. And this government has shown issues with time allocation. As my colleague has stated, this government has used time allocation. More than half of all the times of time allocation in history have been applied by this UCP government. The government consistently uses time allocation to ram through controversial bills, as is evidenced by the fact that we have more time allocations as we get closer to the end of session. When the bills are bigger and more impactful and more controversial, we allocate them more so that we have even less time to debate the bills that are the most controversial and the most difficult for Albertans to digest. If these bills are so great, the government would not need to time allocate them all the time. It is the fact that they are problematic that more debate is required, Mr. Speaker. It has been clear to me and to Albertans that this government does not want to allow for fulsome debate on bills. And I find that really starts to undermine the foundation of why we are here, why this House exists, why we have been chosen by Albertans to do the job that we do. These changes to the standing orders further solidify that reluctance of debate by allowing the government to fast-track multiple bills at once. Ironically, Mr. Speaker, even now, the government has given notice to time allocate this motion, which talks about time allocations. So even with this motion, they're like, well, we don't want to talk about that either. So we don't want to talk about time allocation. We don't want to talk about controversial bills. We don't want to talk about health care, even though that is what Albertans are talking about right now. So at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, I kind of have to ask myself, what do we want to talk about? Apparently, all we want to talk about is how great the government is. I don't want to talk about that, Mr. Speaker. I want to do my job as an opposition MLA and hold this government accountable, because that is what the people of Banff-Kananaskis have elected me to do. And these changes impede my ability to do that to the best that I can. When I go home and talk to the people in Banff-Kananaskis, I hear, please, ask the government about health care. Ask the government about why does the Banff Hospital not have a CT machine? And actually, the Canmore Hospital has one, but it's only available from Monday to Friday, so heaven forbid you should fall down on the ski slopes on a Saturday, Mr. Speaker, because you'll actually have to get trucked all the way to Calgary to even have the imaging done to figure out what your injury is, because this government can't afford to fund the staff to run the CT scanner in Calgary on the weekends. Most people ski on Saturday, Mr. Speaker. I don't know why that's news. I went skiing on a Saturday at Lake Louise, and whoa, it's busy. It's very busy. That is when people get hurt in the mountains. But if you get hurt in the mountains on a weekend, it's going to take you longer to get health care because the hospitals don't have the capacity and the equipment that they need to serve the people. But we're not talking about that, Mr. Speaker. Our first day back in session, after being off for several months, we had an opportunity to talk about the #1 thing that is on top of mind for Albertans right now, and that was rejected so that we can debate standing orders, but that's also time allocated. So it's not a fulsome debate about anything. It's not talking about health care or affordability. It's talking about, can we limit debate more? And I don't think that that's why Albertans have hired us, Mr. Speaker. I want to speak a little bit to the written questions and the motions of return. These are one of the tools that MLAs can use to force a debate in the legislature on issues that are important to their constituents. And I'll remind you, Mr. Speaker, that is why we are here. We are here to represent our constituents. This change to the standing orders is a reaction to the volume of questions and motions of return on the order paper currently. That's not proactive governance. That's not governance that is thinking about the future and all MLAs that will stand in this House in the future. That's a government that's like, well, we don't really want to answer these questions, so we're just not gonna. And we're gonna find a way to not answer them because we'll just change the rules. Rather than actually answering the questions posed, providing the information that is being asked for, this government would rather just reject the questions outright, without debate, without justification. That is not a government that fosters transparency and accountability. It is another example of a government that doesn't like being held accountable, and so they just change the rules so they don't have to be. And this is similar to the changes that we saw with freedom of information in legislation that actually limits the ability of the public to ask the government questions also, because now the government can just not answer a FOIP request, or they can redact more of it than they were able to before. And so if the opposition can't hold the government accountable and the public can't hold the government accountable, who's holding the government accountable? Nobody, Mr. Speaker, so that's why they can just do whatever they want, because they have a majority and they're reducing the mechanisms for anybody to hold them accountable to that. And that is why these changes to the standing orders are so problematic, Mr. Speaker, because we're here to debate, and a big part of that debate is trying to hold the government accountable. Again, if the government's decisions are so great and are truly serving Albertans, then they shouldn't have a problem standing up in this House and defending those decisions and providing the data that informs those decisions so that Albertans can have trust in their government. And right now, Albertans don't have trust in the government, Mr. Speaker. And a big part of it is because of the way this government has reduced our ability to effectively debate in this House. Motions for return and written questions are a tool for accountability, Mr. Speaker, and the changes to the standing orders don't allow us to exercise that tool. It also provides, again, changes where the government House leader can choose to reject questions, which then drops them from the order paper and makes them completely undebatable. So not only does the government not have to answer the question or provide the data or provide any justification, there's no opportunity for us to even debate that response from the government House leader. No answers, no debate, no repercussions for simply rejecting written questions or motions for return. All of those things are a critical part of what happens here in this House. This is why Albertans elected us. I have to say, Mr. Speaker, sometimes I feel like the government opposite is just not used to having an opposition, because for many decades, we didn't really have an opposition in Alberta, but we do now. And Albertans expect it to be treated as an opposition. And a critical point of having an opposition is to have fair, equitable, and abundant debate, especially especially around things that are controversial, on things where most Albertans do not unanimously agree. That's what we're here to do. That's why Albertans have elected us. And I can promise you right now, Mr. Speaker, on the very first day of spring session 2026, I will continue to fight vehemently for the people of Banff-Kananaskis, and I will debate all day long, all night long, every day of the week. Thank you very much.